Once again, everyone, it is time for Once Upon a Tune, the podcast about tunes where we celebrate music.
And the characters who make it. What's up, everybody? I'm Broke Bolden.
And I'm Dev Jana. And this week, we're going to jump straight into the big idea, which is drummers. From all types of stuff, I think we're going to get into it. I would like to start us off with... I was going to start us off with maybe Danny Carey from Tool, but who we will get to. But I'm going to start us off with one who I know a lot of drummers are going to hate me for bringing this up. But I'm going to bring up a person whose work you've heard on drums on more recordings than almost anyone else, and that's Roger Linn. Do you know who Roger Linn is?
I do not.
He is the inventor
sir.
of the Linn drum. The first widely used drum machine. I pulled up a list of songs that use the drum, the Linn drum, or the LM1, which is Prince.
You're not even letting us get started with regular drummers.
No, I'm going straight into the controversy.
Into the weird.
Yep. Okay, listen to these drum beats that you know.
Though. It's important.
It is incredibly. Listen to this. Kate Bush, Running Up That Hill, Tears for Fears, Shout, Don Henley, Boys of Summer, which that drum part was programmed on the Linn drum by the great Mike Campbell of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. They make wine out of your blood.
The Grape Harpers.
Queen, Radio Gaga, I Want to Break Free. Billy Idol, White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face. Hall & Oates, I Can't Go For That. Tom Petty, Don't Come Around Here No More. Stevie Wonder, Part-Time Lover. Whitney Houston, How Will I Know? Madonna, Lucky Star, Burn It Up. Aha, Take On Me. And then Prince, 1999, Little Red Corvette. When Doves Cry, Purple Rain. Kiss. I mean, it's Sheila E., The Glamorous Life. We could just kind of keep going down that line. Those are all iconic drum parts. And I know that people hate it, but it's just like, I think of it as the beginning of a different section or a way to put together beats. And I think what a lot of people don't like about it is that it sounds kind of natural, but not really. It's kind of like a they're taking our jobs argument. But at the same time, like, I can't imagine Kiss in specific from Prince. I can't imagine that beat being any way different, like a single atom different than it actually is. Close to 20 years ago, a friend of mine's a DJ, and he was like, what should I play on New Year's? You know, like when after we do the countdown. And I was like, Kiss, Prince, you're supposed to kiss who you're with at midnight. And he's like, are you sure? He's like more of a hip hop dance club guy. And he said the place went absolutely bonkers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Happy New Year. He's like, the whole place went completely bonkers. And that beat is like airtight. You got any thoughts on any of those?
On any of those, the songs or the Linn drum?
Yes.
I mean, I look at it like this. I came from rockabilly and straight folk music and blues. So I've always been like a purist at heart. But I also respect and understand and appreciate the evolution of music. You know, I never have had a problem with that. I feel like music needs to progress, because if it didn't, and we didn't have things like the Linn drum, does that mean like once a bongo or hand drum was invented way back when cavemen started beating on things,
they were like, hey,
that no other instrument should have been invented?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense.
Me angry, me stick player.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's weird.
No, but does that mean the snare drum doesn't get invented by that logic? Right? Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, I think it's amazing, and look at how important it has become. Like you can't be a true music lover without acknowledging the tools that have, made the hits. And if this many people are on it, then come on.
And
like,
we don't get sampling culture. We don't get hip hop. We don't end up with the entire world of EDM, or even like a lot of people like considered like the dubstep era kind of a flash in the pan. But that was a real clear evolution of music to me. Like, we started with like this Roman 5 notes. We get to the 12 celestial notes. We get the Western scale. You know, we can get microtonal stuff. But we basically have these 12 notes and beats. And then, dubstep was going, yeah, we were going to play all these things that aren't notes in between, you know. And I was like, that seems like an evolution of music.
Yeah.
And I think that like we don't get any of that without the technology moving things forward. So yeah, I just wanted to toss that out there first.
No, I think that's a very interesting starting point because let's face it, guys, you out there, you know a lot of the names we're about to say. Hopefully, we're gonna hit you with a couple left hooks here and there, but you know, there's some very important drummers. I think it's a good place to start with hitting something a little out of left field. So that was a great one, man. Yeah, hitting the Lindrum. Wow.
I was
not expecting it.
Yeah, I wasn't either. And what I started doing, I sat down when I was thinking about this episode when we started talking about doing one on drummers. I was like, okay, well, who has drummed on the most things? And it eventually, I was like, it might be that, you know. And we're starting to see like Behringer has created the LM drum, which is like a knockoff version of the Lindrum. We're starting to see like even 40 some years after its invention, we're starting to see people go, oh, you know, we want that, but we can't afford the vintage stuff. So it's still part of the zeitgeist and part of people's production profiles or workflows, I should say, which is really wild.
Tavon, my head engineer at Aerotone, right down the street, has one of those.
I saw it.
It's in our studio.
Yeah.
The Behringer one.
I don't know if you remember. Well, I mean, you might not have been in the room. Last time I was there, I was like, oh, is that? And he's like, it's the Behringer one. I was like, oh, okay, cool. That makes sense. Because I was like, I don't know how you would have gotten.
But it looks just like it.
It does.
Like it's a complete replica. It sounds great.
Yeah. But yeah, Roger Lynn, he's still around and he's still really interested in like he's still involved with the world of production and music. And that in and of itself is a pretty amazing career. You know, like to have had that kind of impact on music and culture is pretty wild. So that's what I started
awesome.
with. Really quickly, I would like to also note, and Matt knows this because he has recorded me a bunch of times, I personally prefer and always try to work with like a human being who's hitting a thing that is vibrating air, and then that gets picked up by the microphone. Like I always prefer to do that as much as possible. But I have used drum machines plenty in the past. In fact, last night I literally was digging through and I found a recording from 2002 that I really liked, and I was like, oh, this was when I was using that drum machine, and I personally find it difficult. Not that it makes music bad, but I'm not good at using the tool yet, if that makes sense. Like I haven't built the skill on it to be, I think it's a lot harder to come up with a beat on a machine that is unique, where everyone has the exact same capabilities. Like, you know, you hear the beginning of "Don't Come Around Here No More" by Tom Petty, and it's like that. Before the music starts, you know what that is.
Yeah.
That's a very, very, very difficult thing to do with a tool where everyone has the exact same capabilities on it, just by clicking buttons. So like, I think it brings out the taste and it bridges some of the gap between your taste and your ability, which is kind of the point of technology in production.
Yeah, sorry, you took me off. Now my brain's going in like way different directions than I was planning on. But I am gonna throw a softball here to start, just because I think it's important, even though we've heard their names a million times, you know, or maybe you haven't, and glad to introduce. But I would like to talk a little bit about Keith Moon, because the best way I can explain Keith Moon to somebody without who's never heard of him is Animal from the Muppets was based off of Keith Moon. So like that's all you need to know is they based Animal from the Muppets off Keith Moon.
And for those who don't know, the drummer for the Who.
For the Who, yes. Yeah. And I just want to. You know, he was as crazy of a person as he was a drummer. They go hand in hand. You know, we always joked in bands and stuff that, you know, there's something about people who want to hit stuff for a living. You know what I mean? But Keith Moon was cranked up to 11 all the time, no matter what. Unfortunately, it led to him burning out super young. But the one thing that I would say is if you've never seen, it's not in the Woodstock movie, but if you can find footage of the Who's opening to their Woodstock performance, it is insane. You watch what the rest of the band's doing, and it's obviously really good, really well coordinated. But it would never have sounded the same without Keith Moon. The drum beats he was putting to just regular rock chords. I mean, they were great chords. And, oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind. What's the guitarist's name?
Oh, Pete Townsend.
Pete Townsend, jeez.
Yeah.
Oops. Cut it.
Well, your brain was in drummer
I just
mode.
lost all cred.
Your brain was in drummer mode.
Yeah. But no, you listen to, the orchestration Pete Townsend put behind it, and it's great, but it's really just a bunch of really cool rock chords. But hearing what Keith Moon does to it and feeling the power behind it, and just like you can imagine being there and just being, I don't care how big of a Who fan you are or aren't. If you're a rock and roll fan, that to me, seeing Keith Moon's drumming at the opening of their Woodstock set was just that's what really sent me over the edge with, okay, this guy was something magic, and I've never seen anything like this. We're in 2026 now. I've still never seen anything like this.
Yeah. And he's one of the people who, if we go back, I'm going to talk about some jazz drummers later. I think that's a bigger part of my life than it is of yours. But the great Gene Krupa kind of established the standard drum kit, right? Like the hi-hat, the snare, kick, and the toms, ride, and crash, auxiliary cymbals. And Keith Moon was famous for not playing with a hi-hat. Mm-hmm. So he looks like an animal. Like he's not playing in this closed little box most of the time and stretches out for his fills. Like his beats are all over the place, and sometimes like a bunch of cymbals and toms, and it is unlike anyone else's physical actual playing. Like the way that he plays is completely different.
It's all fills.
Yeah,
he just does a fill the whole song, and it works. It works.
And the cymbals are like smashing in your face. It is something else. It took me a long time to get into the Who, quite honestly, when I was young. I don't. And as a guitarist first, you can tell I'm covering myself up while I'm saying this because I know other guitarists are going to batter me for it. But I'm not a big fan of Pete Townsend. I think John Entwistle is a bigger part of on the bass is a bigger part of their sound than the guitars. And it took me a long time to warm up to the synth work that they were doing. It just wasn't part, as I was saying, just not really part of what connected with me. But once I did, it was Moon's drumming that absolutely grabbed me by the throat and was like, "You're gonna listen to this, dude."
Yeah.
I still, you're right. I still haven't heard anybody that I would compare to him. Be like, "Oh, that guy plays like Keith Moon."
No, he was just on a completely different level. Unfortunately, in every aspect of it.
In every aspect.
Yeah, but I mean, you can't get there without it.
And speaking of Townsend, I think most people know that he's in his advanced age has been experiencing hearing loss for a long time, and a lot of that has to go to when they blew up Keith's kick drum. I can't remember what the TV show was for, and Keith, before they did it, added extra gunpowder to it so that it would blow up louder. I mean, who does that? That is like some prototype rock star stuff.
Well, what about him passing out while playing? Falling asleep because he was on elephant tranquilizer, I think it was, that he took before. They had to drag him off stage, his limp body, but it was in the middle of a song. He was still doing it. His eyes were closed and rolled back in his head, and he was still keeping time until his body was like, "All right, dude, you're going to bed."
That era of rock stars, man. There were something because they were on the frontier of defining what it was.
Well, they invented it, yeah.
Yeah. Before Jim Morrison, there was no prototype of the leather pants wearing destroy your hotel room rock star. It didn't really happen. And that brings me to John Densmore, who's on my list.
Same.
I once heard the Doors. A huge fan of the Doors, and they're one of those bands I think is disappearing. You don't hear them on classic rock radio anymore. They don't fit well into the algorithms of what classic rock music is. It's not the distorted guitars. And John Densmore was they didn't have a bass player, but in like kind of these jazzy keys on top of it. But Densmore has some of the most like lush drum parts, like these really beautiful, like long riding. I put "L.A. Woman" down here for the song to listen to. You've probably heard it a million times, but listen to it again and just listen to the drums. He is grooving on that track, man. It is absolutely beautiful. There's so many great Doors songs, and I've once heard them described as a rock band that's really a jazz band. And I was like, I'd never really thought about it like that, but they, Densmore's drumming really opened me up a lot to listening to jazz. And I don't know, Manzarek is like, they're a band of weirdos, like complete total weirdos from beginning to end. And Manzarek's playing, like, it doesn't always get me, but when it does, it is like getting struck by lightning or something. But yeah, that era of like those kind of like earliest drummers. Well, I think that a lot of people don't think of them as really groundbreaking because they influenced so many people that came after them.
Well, and John Densmore like reminds me of like the first angry drummer.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Do you know what I mean? Like he had that look to him, like he was just pissed off all the time. Whether or not he was or wasn't, well, I'd be angry too if I had to be in a band with Jim Morrison. like, dude, nothing but respect, but come on. Like,
right. There's no way that was easy. Yeah.
yeah. But no, but you watch him play and like it's one of those things. He'll be as smooth as it gets, but kind of have that mean look to him. And then all of a sudden, like you see it like, all right, I've had enough. I got to get something out here. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of times in those bands too, it's like it's got to be hard to be. And I'm going to bring up Mitch Mitchell from the Jimi Hendrix Experience.
That was next on my list.
Unreal drummer, like legitimately for me, top 5 drummer of all time. And it's got to be so hard to stand out when you've got that guy up front. You know what I mean? And same thing with Densmore and everyone in the Doors. Like you got that guy up front. Like how do you stand out? Like that's got to be really, really difficult to be a world class, like all time talent. And
I have an answer for that. I have an answer for that. Fire.
Fire.
Just listen to Fire by Jimi Hendrix. You want to know how to stand out with Jimi Hendrix? Listen to Mitch Mitchell's drumming on Fire.
Yeah, it's
nonstop.
And you go back and you listen to some of those live shows, and there are times where, and I'm a guitarist first, like by miles. I do play the drums as well, and to put in perspective, I think I played the guitar in 18 bands and the drums in 3. So like heavily skewed towards guitar. And there are times when I'm listening to live Hendrix where I tune out the guitar and I just start listening to the drums because like also Jimmy was so talented and so ahead of his time that it doesn't even sound like a guitar. It's like, well, there's this really cool beat going while a UFO is landing in the background or something, and that's what's happening with the guitar. But there are times when Mitch Mitchell's playing is like, it's both calling and responding to everything else that's happening around him in a way that like that band sounded like an organism and not like a group of humans who were coming together to play.
And he just looked cool. Like Mitch Mitchell looked cool in their peak, like late 60s, early 70s time. He had that blonde hair with the bandana, and like he was doing stuff, but his face was always like effortless. He did not have the angry face. He had that kind of like calculated. Yeah, I know this is cool. You don't got to tell me. Look to him. Right. You know what I mean? Like.
And he also knew when to he was so laid back, he knew when to just like stop and let the guys go.
Yeah.
And then knew the right little pickup to bring him back in. And his, unlike a lot of the other drummers who are very powerful, like Mitch was very floppy, like his arms almost looked like noodles or something when he was playing. He was like really free flowing, and everything was an option. Every single thing in front of him was an option to hit, and it sounded absolutely incredible. I kind of want to bring a little bit more modern, but I was interested in if you have anyone else that you wanted to talk to before or talk about before.
I'm going to what are we? All right, we got time. Yeah, I'll bring in one more, and then I'm gonna let you go modern, and then we're gonna talk about who we have to talk about.
Right. There's a few of them.
I'm gonna let. Well, I think there's one that we just talked about that you got a story and everything, but once you get him out of the way, I have to move to a more punk thing, and I got a couple stories to tell. So, let me just look through what I have, because screw it. Let's get him out of the way, because you can't have this conversation without him. Let's talk about Bonham.
Yeah, that's actually what I was about to say. Is Bonzo has like completely changed everything. Oh, and we didn't really talk about this earlier. For you listeners, a couple things. There is an official playlist that will have all of the songs and the artists about which we talk. And one of the things that we talked about while we're putting together this episode was what song should you listen to to find out these drummers. And for Bonzo, I had Dazed and Confused.
I was just gonna say Dazed and Confused. That's the one that's on my list. So
the Bonham triplets, like every drummer, we literally call them Bonham triplets. And I was listening to an old recording. Oh my God, I'm so old. It was literally 31 years ago. And it was a recording from my parents' basement that I found yesterday. And I went, I couldn't do Bonham triplets yet. That's literally what I said when I was listening to it. I was like, because it is like a threshold. You learn to do that. It's like, okay, that gets added to your playing the same way that, like, I don't know, like bending or something does for your guitar playing. Like once you can do the Bonham triplets, like it's something that will show up in your playing, and your entire like drumming gets separated to before you could do it and after you could do it. You know what I'm saying? But Bonzo, man, talk about like an actual animal. That guy was like, he was gonna like explode every single time. The tropes of what it means to be a rock star and live the like hedonistic rock star life and be just a complete animal of a human being and a drummer,
and the power.
I think no one. There's a couple people that I think are directly in his lineage. I actually have Chad Smith down here as someone who's in his lineage. The first time I saw the Chili's play shows, one of my favorite bands, the Red Hot Chili. Chad Smith's drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I looked at my buddy and I said, I think Chad's foot is made of thunder. You know, like it's just so like power and on the mark. But I can't think of anybody else who could play behind the band in Led Zeppelin. Like John Paul Jones is one of the greatest musicians of all time, and those two coming together the way they do in do 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 for however long Jimmy goes completely bonkers in that song sounds like absolutely nothing else. I think.
Well, we can get to. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
No. I think that the first, if you look at the first song on the first album of any band, like that's their opening salvo, right? And Good Times, Bad Times comes out with one of like I can't even imagine putting that record on back then and going, what is this guy doing on the drums? Like immediately out of the gate, some of the most unique and like powerful drumming. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, listening to like even Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, man, like that's way more straightforward of a beat than you're used to hearing him play. Because usually he's a little more all over, or has these crazy weird time signature. You know, him playing Rock and Roll and just listening to his foot the whole time.
Yeah.
You know, if you can isolate that kick pedal on Rock and Roll, it just that alone is enough to like drive it home, you know?
Absolutely. And if you haven't done it yet, try counting through the intro for Rock and Roll on the drums and see if you can see if you haven't actually tried to play it and like the control of the volume that he's doing, it is so much more interesting than you think that it would be. But yeah, I'm gonna we're gonna have to talk about Neil Peart in a second, and we talked about. But I also want to say that, like, in that conversation, we're also going to have to talk about Danny Carey from Tool. And I'm going to use that as a run-up to Neil, because I think there is a direct line of, like, great rock drummers through those three guys. And Danny Carey is really, like, he's my favorite drummer to watch, if that makes sense. You know, if you folks haven't watched, well, we're going to put some... stuff in the playlist, and particularly Lateralis. I think his drumming it's not his most intricate drumming, but the way that he builds that entire song up. And then there's if you watch him play live, he has a gong, and there's a specific part where he hits the gong, and it's not at the peak. It's prior to it, and it's if you watch him actually play it, there's a part where he's playing this drum fill. While he's playing it, he takes one of his sticks and he puts it under his arm, finishes the fill with that hand while picking up the thing for the gong, hits the gong, and then comes back and play. It's just like he does that and that's just, and it's at an unnatural. It's at a very unique part of the song, but I think it's not where anybody else would have put it, and it's like a slap in the face, not in a like violent way, but like wake up every single time I listen to it. We'll talk about Lateralis eventually, because that's, if I had to choose a favorite song of all time, it might actually be Lateralis.
Ooh.
But Neil Peart from Rush, I don't know what else to say about him. I don't know what there can be said about him. He is.
There's nothing new to say, that's for sure.
360-degree drum kit with, gold hardware, and everyone's like, yes, of course.
Everyone's on board.
Who else could possibly do that? The first time I saw Rush, I loved Rush most of my life, but the first time I saw him, I was like, I didn't know how much I loved Rush, and I started kind of falling in love with them as people. And one of the things I say all the time is like, it's hard to describe. Like, you don't know what it's like to see the old man go to work. That's what I would say. It's like, you don't know what it's like to see the old man go to work, because this was this quiet guy who didn't like being a celebrity, who was like, well, I'm the greatest drummer on the planet. I guess I have to go out there and do this in front of everyone. And if you follow his tape, he had he lost his wife and his daughter, like kind of back to back, and then just hopped on his motorcycle and drove from coast to coast, and just like he was that guy at the back of the diner reading a book by himself. You would have never known that it was the greatest drummer on the planet. Wrote a book about it, Ghostwriter, and then came back and gave us a Vapor Trails, which a lot of people think is not their best album, but I love that album, and it was recorded. This is the greatest drummer on the planet and we'll talk a little bit more. Like, he eventually was like, I need to go take some lessons. Who does that, right? And that's how humble he was. But when he came back, they had recorded the album. Like Geddy and Alex had recorded the album to a click, and then he wrote his like drums underneath it. And then I don't remember if they re-recorded it, but like he basically reinvented himself after reinventing himself like personally and spiritually after going through that journey. Reinvented himself as a drummer and came out as the same drummer. It's like, well, it doesn't get better than that.
Yeah. He realized he couldn't level up because
it's incredible. But the story we talked about offline was how, and I don't think you can do this anymore just from what you're allowed to bring to concerts. But I remember people bringing drumsticks to the shows and air drumming along with the big fills. Specifically, I have Tom Sawyer written down. Maybe the greatest drum break to ever hit the radio waves or streaming or whatever. And literally, there's thousands of people there all playing every single note in the air along with him. I can't think of another person that would inspire that type of like fanatic following as a drummer. Let me say that one more time. A drummer. Like, who else has actually done that? Just Neil. All right. What you got to follow that one up?
Well, I mean, nothing follows it up. We just crescendoed now.
Yeah, we hit the gong.
Yeah, we hit the gong. So I guess I'm going to take a quick second before I get into the next bit of my list, because it's been a really, really rough week for me, and a lot of people in my camp. I lost one of my best friends, who is hands down the best personal drummer I knew when it comes to energy and power and speed and calculation. He was the original drummer of my band, Matty B and the Dirty Pickles. We grew up together. We were in our first bands together, and he just it made it hard to have any other drummer. He ended up moving to Chicago, and then later on Portland. So we stopped playing together, and I had to get people to fill his shoes. And I've had a lot of amazing drummers. I've seen a lot of people who, our next drummer after Mark was Dig It Dave, who was just our artist, who Drew the Pickle, and he was a big fan. Never played in his life. We taught him how to play, and he picked it up, man. He worked his butt off. So more power to him, and he did great. We stuck with him for another 10, 15 years, you know. And I always say, though, it's hard because everyone I ever played with had to compare to Mark.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, he passed this week suddenly, right before his 40th birthday. And he is the reason why I know half of this list that we talked about today. He loved music so hard. He loved everything. It was we would laugh because it was almost annoying. He loved everything and could find like the coolest stuff in everything. And it's just like, no, Mark, this isn't that good. He's like, yeah, but listen to this one chorus, not the other chorus. It's just this one chorus. He could hyper focus on these sections and just fall in love with it. And his drumming was there's 2 songs that I'm going to put on the playlist. And by the way, this playlist, we do it weekly. So every episode of the podcast has a playlist that goes with it that has everything any song that we hit or artist that we hit on it. And they're so cool to listen to. Deb does an awesome job putting them together. So really, if anything, even if you don't fully get through the podcast, check out the playlist, because that's the most important part of what we're trying to do is share music, share our love of music, share your love of music with us. Give us songs and stuff to talk about if you don't hear us talking about it. But yeah, Mark Grzywinski is his name, Marky G. The 2 songs that I would say, they're both off of our album, Infinite Chaos. You can find them, Matt Broke Boland on Spotify. Is our opening track. It's not my best song by any means. Definitely not my best singing. It's one thing I don't like about it, but Mark's drums on this song are incredible. It's called Broke and Proud. And yeah, Broke and Proud. And then the other song would be a song we wrote called Time to Resist, which is crazy relevant these days. We wrote it back in 2011, I think. But yeah, those 2 songs really showcase, and there's so much other stuff out there at him. You can YouTube Matty B and the Dirty Pickles and just look for that backwards hat. But I'm going to say a couple of his biggest heroes right now just to kind of establish the style of drumming. One, he loved Neil Peart and he loved John Bonham. Those were his 2 reasons for getting into it, and you can hear it with his power and his speed and precision. But the other 2 people that I would have to say Mark talked about and was influenced by the most is Travis Barker from Blink-182, who just, guy's a machine gun.
Yeah.
Cardio out through the roof. You know what I mean? Like you can't, Mark had that same intensity. And once I started learning more about Travis Barker, I'm like, oh, this is where you get it from. It's that style of just like anger and aggression and getting it out, but caring about. A lot of punk bands, the drumming's like fast and intense and stuff, but I feel like the discipline's lost in it, and the art form of drumming and knowing, it's just getting it out. It's pure energy without the discipline behind it. And Travis Barker, to me, is a great example of somebody who has that raw energy and intensity while having so much discipline and coming up with creative ways instead of coming up with creative ways to do that really, he kind of reinvented the wheel on how to do that style of drumming. And a song that I would check out is from his other band called The Transplants, which he had with Tim Armstrong from Rancid and I can't think of the guy's name, but like a hardcore singer. It was a really cool band. I think they had 2 albums. But there's a song called Diamonds and Guns that was a really cool, really good example of some of his drumming. But and then the other one that I want to bring up that was hands down Mark's guy. And if you watch any video, if you can find any video of Mark's drumming and compare it to watching the drumming, is Trey Cool from Green Day.
Yeah.
Just so solid. So solid. And the way Trey drums and some of his little moves and stuff, hands down, you could tell just how much he influenced Mark, because Mark drummed exactly. Like, it looks like, I know we're a week out in the podcast, but the Super Bowl just happened, and Green Day played the Super Bowl, and it was actually kind of hard to watch because every time it cut to Trey Cool, I was just like, oof, that's Mark, man. Like, it looks like Mark when he drums. So I had to bring those ones up, just because, you know, again, I want to dedicate this whole episode to Marky because he really was the best. But going through and listening to these drummers, specifically the last two, it really defines and showcases how people our age, you know, I just turned 40, he was about to turn 40, our whole group, you know, is in that range, and those guys just taught us stuff, you know, the same way, like you're saying, you had your guys who taught you stuff. Yeah. Those guys taught us what it meant.
They were the ancestors. Yeah. I think you also you posted something like an old video of you guys, and you were like, check out Mark's drum solo in the middle here, and I didn't realize it at the time, but when you were just like, it looks like Trey, kind of like you can see how much of an influence. It's like, absolutely. It's really hard to be identifiable as a drummer, you know, like you were saying. Travis Barker is a perfect example. He can play kind of anything, but it's the power with which he plays it. Sometimes I'm like, is that Travis? And I'll listen to it and look it up, be like, yep, that was Travis playing on that song, because he plays with everybody. But Trey has this one like single stroke that he does all the time, and it literally sounds like a machine gun.
Yeah,
you know, like, and like nobody else hits. Everybody learns, but there's something about when Trey does that that it's just so like, it literally sounds like you know, like an Uzi or something happening. And yeah, I could absolutely hear that. Thank you for sharing, Matt.
I always said Mark was the only machine gun drummer I've ever played with, where I'm like, sometimes I hit the deck because I'm like, is that Mark drumming, or are we under fire, you know? But I do have a couple more that I want to shout out when it comes to punk rock, because I do have this, I am under the belief that sometimes the best drumming is the lack of drumming, and just people who really understood how to make the song fit. Yeah. And I have down here, I'm going to catch some flack, Meg White.
She's on my list.
Meg White, just for being able to hold it down and do exactly what needs to get done, exactly where it needs to get done. I'm going to rapid fire these ones because I know we got more to talk about, and I've been talking for a long time. But Jerry Nolan from the New York Dolls.
That's a good call.
Yeah, like very simplistic drumming, but just metronome, you know, perfect for that band. Of course, I can't not bring up Tommy and Marky Ramone. You know, because
I don't think you've told your story on one of the podcasts about when you met Marky. I think you should.
Oh yeah, so if you've watched the podcast before, you know that the Ramones are, you know, why I even play music, and I was fortunate enough to see the Misfits years and years and years ago, and it was when Marky was playing with them. We jokingly called it the Jerry Only experience because it was Dez from Black Flag, Jerry Only, and Marky Ramone. So it wasn't really the Misfits, but and they were doing their 1950s tour because they released like an album of all 50s covers and stuff, and Marky was on that one, and I'm hanging out by one of the backstage exits. And Marky Ramone comes out, and I'm just like, oh, my God, I'm standing right. Marky's watching one of the other bands. It was a cool show. It was D.I., The Damned, the Dickies and the Misfits. So like, if you're into punk rock, like that, just a home run lineup. It was at Club Laga in Pittsburgh, and
I haven't heard that name in a while.
I know, right?
Wow. Okay.
So
Sorry.
Marky comes out and he's just standing right next to me, and I'm like, well, I have to say something. This is
my hero. One
yeah.
of my heroes.
And I'm just like, hey man, if you know anything about Marky, he's super dry and just like, well, the Ramones were kind of the greatest band. Like he just has this weird way of talking, so New York. And I asked him, I was like, hey man, is there any chance I can get a drumstick from you, or you mind signing it? And he just looks at me and goes, yeah, we have them up at the merch table. Just like, come on, man.
Perfect answer. Perfect answer.
I was dying. I was just like, like, come on, man. But I get it. I totally get it. So that was my Marky Ramone story. I just total let down. Like he told me to go to the merch table if I wanted anything, which is the right answer.
Yeah. So I'm gonna bring a little bit more modern and talk about Mario Duplanter from the great Gojira, one of my favorite metal bands of the last. I guess they've probably been active for about 15 years now, something like that. Or at least they've been on my radar for that long. They were at Louder Than Life a couple years ago, and my friends with whom I was there weren't Gojira fans. I should have worn my Gojira shirt today. And I was like, no, you don't understand. You got to go see this band. And one of the things that I always say about Gojira is, like, I'm not a big fan of the Cookie Monster vocals, but I think, you know what I mean? But I think it works with them because they're French, and I think that, like, like, I think it kind of, like, works somehow. Like, there's something there where I think it works. But what it really comes down to is those riffs are unbelievable. They're undeniable. They have these tempo changes that as a drummer you have to like really be able to not just do it but lead the band through it. And Mario also, like, he's so good that it doesn't lose the groove. And the Vinnie Paul from the amazing, one of my favorite bands of all time, Pantera, is another one that, like, I mean, people credit Pantera with starting groove metal, right? Like, but there are these time switches. And similarly, when I was lucky enough to go to Pantera played a show. They did the tour with Metallica the other year, and we're going to talk about Lars. Don't worry, we're going to get to Lars.
Why?
But because we have to. But the day before on that tour, Metallica did Friday and Saturday here, and they did with this Metallica takeover where there's, like, they literally take over like half of the city, and it's wild. And Pantera was opening for them on that tour, and they played at First Avenue, a surprise show. It was the smallest show that Pantera had played since 1991. And my best friend Phil was on his way up, and for his birthday, because our birthdays are close to each other, and as they were driving up, me and my other buddy were like, we had the iPhone out and the laptop and the iPad, and we're trying to get in for the tickets because they sell out in like 20 seconds. And I got in, and we got to see Pantera in this tiny, tiny little club. And a couple of the folks that were with us weren't big Pantera fans. And one of the things that one of them said was like, I didn't realize how the grooves change and how that is part of the song. It's like you're in this thing and then you get that and then you come back. It's like I didn't realize that. It's really impressive. It's like, yeah, it's a huge part of this. Like if you listen to the riffs individually, they're great, but the way that the transitions happen, like I call it turning a corner in a band. Like when you're playing a song with your band, it's like you're in a car and you're driving down the street, and when you turn a corner, no one should smash into the door. Everyone should know that you're turning together. And that is something that like Gojira is incredible at that. And Mario also does this thing where he releases a drum solo every year on his YouTube channel. It might be on the Gojira channel, but there's like the Mario Duplanter solo this year, and it'll say like 2025, and it'll give you the name, Cyclone or something. It's totally worth the watch. It's absolutely incredible, and you can tell how much this guy loves playing. That's one of the things that comes through. You were talking about Trey Cool earlier. I think Trey's like personality and his like goofiness comes through in his playing. Like,
Absolutely.
Other people play the same beats and sound completely different. I wanted to make sure that we didn't miss out on that lineage of like metal drumming through to Gojira, like kind of at the current moment. And I would say check out what they did at the Summer Olympics the other year. I don't think that there has been currently. I think that's probably the highest profile metal performance of potentially of all time. The Olympic opening ceremonies on the Rive Gauche of the Seine, like that, I'm not sure anybody else even comes close
Awesome.
in terms of reach of a metal drummer. I've got a couple others I would like to crack into, but I think you got a few more.
So I have two songs that I want to get. So the first one, I'll make this kind of quick because I don't really need to go in depth on the song. I think the majority of you guys out there may have heard it, but if you didn't, I'm excited to show you. Hurricane by Bob Dylan. Here's the story of the hurricane. Such a important song.
Yes.
In fact, I might save the whole story of that song and just do it on history one of these times. So be sure to keep tuning in to hear the whole story on that. But I specifically want to talk about, there's a lot of things that make that song incredible. From the lyrics to it might be one of Dylan's best sung songs. You know what I mean? And to the violin. But the drumming is what makes it. And it's a really interesting thing because it makes it because you didn't know it made it until you listen to it now that I'm saying this.
Yeah.
And sorry for sounding arrogant. Howie Wyeth is his name. Wyeth is the drummer. And just, I want you to listen to that song. We're going to put it on the playlist. It's a very powerful song in general, about Reuben Carter and a lot of the racial turmoil in the country, and his story in general is just heartbreaking. Everything behind that song is powerful, and I think the drumming gets the least acknowledged for that.
I hadn't even thought about it until you said that.
Listen to that
absolutely.
song and the fills and the groove. Howie Wyeth. So yeah, Hurricane by Bob Dylan, a must if you're trying to get into hearing drums that make a song. And then the second one, and this is kind of an interesting one. I was sitting with my buddy Mike, Mike Miller is a photographer out of Erie, Pennsylvania, and he's been doing photography for 50 years. I don't know, since he was just a born photographer and a rock and roll enthusiast. He took pictures of Zeppelin in the early 70s. That's how far back this guy goes, and just doing rock and roll photography. And he's got some of the best pictures of me. It's awesome because whenever I see him at a show, I'm like, yeah, Mike's here. We're gonna get
some good content.
Gonna get a good
Facebook
picture today. He hands down has most of my Facebook pictures.
All the ones where you're jumping, those are him.
Yeah, he's got most of them. Yeah, he showed me his song. We were sitting on his deck, and he asked me if we could come over, have a couple beers, and just listen. Like they used to back in the day. Right. And it's something that I'm trying to do with more of my friends and be like, hey, let's just all get together and sit and listen to an album. Pretend we don't have TV or phones, you know what I mean? And discuss it after we listen to it. So he showed me what he calls his holy grail. And it's called, it's Elton John of anything. He didn't tell me what it was. When he played it. But it's Elton John, 60 Years On. And the drummer on this is Nigel Olsson. Now, I went to North Carolina this summer, and there's a very specific version it has to be, because it's just the one that hits the hardest. So in 1970, they were doing a tour, and this happened, and it was a three-piece band. It was drums, bass, and Elton John. And they put out this live album. And I was in North Carolina with my dad last summer. And we're in one of those, all through the South, they have those huge antique warehouses, right? They're everywhere. And this one specifically had a bunch of records. And I'm just looking through, not thinking anything of it. And my dad's like, is there anything specific you're looking for? And I'm like, no, not really. And then that popped in my head. I'm like, well, if you happen to find this one Elton John live album, right? Wouldn't you know? We got it, dude. So the name of the album is here.
11/17/70. For those of you who may not be watching.
Yeah. If you're not watching, I got the album in my hand right now, but this is the album.
There we go. 11/17/70.
Yeah, 11/17/70. These are the players on it. It just, this version of this song, Mike showed it to me, and he even said, he's like, this is kind of my holy grail. That thing that nobody really knows about, you know? And I heard it, and the drumming on this song and the pounding, you can you feel like you're in the room, and it doesn't feel like it's a very big room, and just the energy comes out. So I really wanted to make that song known and get it on the playlist. 60 Years On by Elton John, and the drumming on it, Nigel Olsson, is just, it's the same thing with Hurricane. Like, it's just powerful, straight powerful. So anyway, sorry. Your turn.
All right, so I'm gonna go kind of away from power and into. I mean, these guys are powerful also, but specifically some like jazz style drummers that maybe. Well, I'm gonna just bring up Tony Williams, one of the greatest jazz drummers. Obviously played with Miles Davis and stuff, but it's his work with Stan Getz, and we talked about this before. For the Stan Getz album, Captain Marvel, has nothing to do with Captain Marvel, the character. That album blew my mind the first time I heard it, which was ages after it came out. But it has stayed in rotation. I listened to it on streaming. I've got it on vinyl, etc. I need to bring my props more often. You always have props. But I've bought that album on vinyl a couple times because I wore one of them out years ago. His drumming on that is absolutely incredible. The entire album. Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the first song on it. But listen to the whole thing. But the first song was the one that opened my eyes, and I didn't know that he was playing on it at first. And I was like, "Who is this?" And I was like, "Oh, it was Tony Williams, of course, one of the greats." Incredible player. We're pretty deep into the episode here, so I'm going to kind of speed run a bunch of these. Also, I don't think we can have a discussion like this without talking about Steve Gadd, one of the greatest drummers of all time, and another chameleon. He's kind of like a Travis Barker of his time, where everyone that was playing, he's played with everybody, and he kind of looks like George Clooney's like enlightened uncle or something to me. I don't know how else to put it. Every time I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's like he seems like an awesome dude. I have a couple other folks on here.
Really weird ways of describing things, man.
I think visually. Buddy Rich, of course. I think.
I was going to say, how have we not talked about Buddy Rich? He's on my list.
Great ambassador, and also was uncompromising to the point where he was willing to be viewed as an asshole, which I think sometimes is necessary.
I don't know if we have this list without Buddy Rich, honestly.
No, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I don't know if we do.
I don't. Who else has won a drum off with Animal? Right. If you haven't seen that video yet, like Animal gets angry because Buddy Rich is better than him and throws a drum at him.
Who is amazing. Keith Moon, as we
exactly. Okay, we got to get into some of these other ones that we haven't really talked about, like Dave Grohl. Obviously, a great drummer, not known for his complexity, but always puts the song first. I think one of the things that he understands really well is songwriting. And so as a result, he knows. You were talking about this with Hurricane. What makes Hurricane such a great song is it knows how to build, and the dynamics of it are so great. The fills are all in the right spot. They're not too long. They're not too short, etc. And yeah, absolutely.
It's awesome when people understand their jobs.
Yes, and he
You know,
totally gets that, and that's what I think people are reacting to with Grohl, not necessarily his chops, because the chops are there, but they're not the same as they are with other ones. While we're talking about Seattle area drummers, don't no one touch Matt Cameron to me. No one even comes close to being there. Actually, there's one person I would put above Matt Cameron as my drummer. I'll talk
you're
about
like,
next.
don't know, buddy.
Well,
Well,
I mean,
actually,
as far as '90s rock goes, my favorite era. I run a band called the '90s, where all we do is play '90s rock, and Matt Cameron is my favorite drummer from that era. Listen to Jesus Christ, anything in that like Super Unknown to Bad Motorfinger. First of all, the name of their album was Bad Motorfinger, right? And it lived up to that. It's incredible. Listen to his drumming on Jesus Christ Pose on that, and there are times where it doesn't sound like music and it sounds like heavy machinery that is coming at you or that's coming to chew you up or something. It's really really wild. But the only drummer and my wife, who's not into this, wasn't as deep into music until she got entangled with me, will agree to this. She's like, yeah, he's like one of the few drummers who like I can pick out immediately, right? Like, is Stuart Copeland from the Police.
I was waiting. I'm like, why hasn't I was giving you
drummer's
the opportunity to bring up Stuart Copeland?
Oh
He's
my
on my
God.
list.
He's just like, the Police are the most important band probably to me in the world. I'll tell a quick story. When I think I was like 4 or 8. I was really young. It was a formative experience for me. My oldest sister got Synchronicity, which was the new Police album at the time, and was listening to it. And I remember being like, "What's that?" She's like, "Oh, this is the Police." And I like sat down and listened to the album with her. And I left her bedroom that day, and I was like, "Cool." You got your idea of what cool is? For me, it started with the Police and Synchronicity. And I still don't think I've heard another band, even the Police didn't even sound like the Police a lot of the times, but Stuart Copeland, he has some really amazing insights into drums and how like you can keep a 4 on the floor. He's like, that's what they're looking for. When they ask for a backbeat, they don't necessarily mean boom, cha. They want that 4 on the floor. And then from there, you can do all these little things. These big octobons. He's like, boom, boop, 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 like all those little things. He's like, I don't need a giant bar of big fills. Like, I can do my little hi-hat fills in there. And then he tunes his toms high. Everyone wants these big, booming, low toms. He's like, cool, but you can't hear them. I want you to hear my drumming, so I tuned him up high. When I saw him, I was lucky enough to see the Police on their first reunion tour in '08, and his work with Oysterhead. And I want to talk about John Fishman also. I think the jam band stuff we can't leave out is Fishman. I think is one of the tastiest drummers. I don't know if it's possible to explain what it was like to live through the '90s and go see Fish live, because the recordings absolutely do not do the experience justice. But that guy's incredible. We also just lost Bob Weir, one of the guys who has seen a bunch of the world. But Mickey Hart behind the drum kit is one of the most unique drummers of all time. I got to work with Mickey Hart and play a drum a couple times. He's playing things that you're not supposed to be playing as musical instruments. And if you consider the amount of shows played and how many eyeballs have seen someone from a stage, there's very few people who come even close to to the great. There was a period where Sting was opening for the Grateful Dead. Like, how big do you have to be that Sting is opening for you?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like that's just absolutely crazy. But yeah, Stuart Copeland, I put down here Synchronicity 2 as the song to listen to, where it is just unbelievably badass from beginning to end. And I, as a guitarist first, of course, Andy Summers I got to bring up Andy Summers as a guitarist, one of the most incredible guitarists of all time. He's doing some like Tom Morello noisy stuff on that track 15 years before it became kind of standard place for rock guitarists to do that. I also want to give a quick shout out to one of my favorite bands ever. They were called Schleho. They were originally from Boston, moved to New York. They were kind of in the festival club circuit, like mostly instrumental, like progressive jazz. I guess today they would be considered progressive rock, I guess. I don't know. But their drummer Eric Eagle is one of the best drummers I've ever heard. He recently published a book on drumming, does private lessons now. Schleho's played a few shows in the last few years, but they have this song Columbius that I will put on the playlist that absolutely just ripped open my understanding of what a drummer could do, and is completely and totally worth a listen. And I know we're hitting the 1 hour mark, so we got to get to your music history and stuff. But
Well, it's okay. I have a couple rapid fires that will lead right into.
cool. Let me talk about Lars Ulrich. Okay, I'm gonna get real close. So you folks pay attention. Metallica's not a band. Metallica is a community that is built around a band. If you've seen Metallica lately, you know they start their shows with, "We are Metallica and so are you." And Metallica is not Metallica without Lars. I'm not arguing that he's got the best chops or the best time. But if you go to a Metallica show, you will experience something that you will not experience anywhere else. And the day that Metallica plays, whenever I get to see them, I greet everyone I meet that day with "Happy Metallica Day." And they know what I'm talking about. You go to Metallica, you see multiple generations of people. It's like going to Disney World. It is the Disney World of metal, right? You know, like I once heard Enter Sandman, not my favorite song by them, but I heard it described as the national anthem for headbangers. And I was like, I can't argue with that. Yeah. I really can't argue with that. And I was not at the show, but a friend of mine went to a show in Milwaukee where they said, okay, who's the youngest person here? And it was a 7-year-old girl. And who's the oldest person here? It was an 86-year-old woman. And like, I can't think of another metal band who has that reach. And if you think about the impact that they've had for us, like, there is a sense of solidarity that you will experience at a Metallica show. Even if you don't like their music and you go, you bring somebody who doesn't know, and you'll realize, like, nobody else, no other combination of people could put this together. They're the only band that has played on all the continents. I think that, like, there are generations Led Zeppelin, and I used Napster, so I thought they came out pretty stupid from that, but they were able to emerge from it, you know, like, and if you want to see how big a rock and roll show can get, go see Metallica. That'll give you your answer. That's the full thing. Okay, I'm done.
Well, I'm gonna counterpoint that, because you just said that Metallica is this generation's Led Zeppelin. I can't necessarily argue with that, but the counter to that in my mind is Green Day. I feel like Green Day is this generation's Rolling Stones.
That's
just
fair.
being able to go and change and maneuver and just have such a tight career with the same founding members. You know what I mean? So I just had to put that out there.
And we've talked about Green Day a bunch too, how, like, they started out as this 3-piece, and then they figured out in order to do what we're going to do, we started writing concept albums, more people on stage. The Stones did that, with Steel Wheels. It's like they were the Rolling Stones before, then they came out, they had the backup singers and percussion, and it was like, oh, okay, this is the Stones, and then they've been that ever since. Green Day followed the same trajectory. Absolutely. Go see Green Day if you haven't. Man, what an incredible
hands
band.
down. I got to see him twice last year. 2 years ago. I remember.
Yeah, we're getting old. The years go quick.
2024. It was because they did Dookie. It was the 30th anniversary of Dookie, so they played all through Dookie, and the 20th anniversary of American Idiot, and they played all the way through that. I've gotten to see Green Day 3 times, and all 3 times I go, oh, that's the best show I've ever seen. Every time I say it, I'm like, all right, you know. But, all right, my last 2 rapid fires. In the context of doing what needs done for the song and being the perfect drummer for the band, Ringo has to be in this conversation.
He's on my list.
You know, Ringo with the Beatles, and the other one that I want to bring up is a little-known one named Jerry Allison. Now, Jerry Allison was Buddy Holly's drummer and his best friend. And Buddy Holly redefined music at a time where rock and roll was just getting defined.
Figuring it out,
he was like redefining it as it was. He was already ahead of it. You know, like people were still wrapping their head around, okay, what is rock and roll music? And Buddy Holly's like, well,
it's also this.
Hang on, exactly. Hang on, you know, hold my beer. But Jerry Allison's drumming, if you listen to the song Peggy Sue, he tuned it's snare drum, rack tom, snare drum, floor tom, and he tuned all three of those drums, the songs A, D, A, E. It flips back and forth like that. And he tuned his snare drum to A, his rack tom to D, and his floor tom to E. And he's playing with Buddy. And it's just rolling. Or, you know, digga-da. I can't do it fast enough. I'm tired. Been talking a lot. But anyway, if you listen to that song, it's amazing. But he also did cool things like in Every Day. Every day, it's a getting closer. The drum part for that song was, oh, here's the microphone, here's my knee.
Yeah, he's playing his D. Yeah, I remember that. We can't actually hear that because it's getting filtered out by Zoom.
Yeah,
but
it's just him patting his leg, and then on Not Fade Away, he took a cardboard box, flipped it over, and put it on his snare drum, and that's why you have this really weird dun digga dun digga dun 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 digga dun digga dun dun. If you listen to it, it's really innovative in understanding how to break the rules and how to get what the song needs rather than doing the first thought that comes to mind. You know what I mean? So Jerry Allison with Buddy Holly was defining rule breaking before rule breaking was even thought of, because it was already breaking the rules.
Breaking the rules that didn't yet exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring me into my music history.
And Matt's Music History is brought to you by Aerotone Productions, a live sound and recording production company coming out of northwestern Pennsylvania, specializing in sound engineering, multimedia editing, archiving, and scoring. This is Matt's Music History.
All right. Thanks, Steph. So good at that. So I want to talk about a little-known band called the Quarrymen. The Quarrymen were an England band, English-based band, England-based band that ended up becoming this other band once they changed their names. And their name, they realized they had to come up with something, and they listened to a lot of Buddy Holly. And in fact, their first ever recording was a cover of Buddy Holly's That'll Be the Day. And Buddy Holly's band was called The Crickets. And these guys spent so much time together sitting and trying to dissect Buddy Holly and how he got those harmonies and how he wrote his songs, that they realized the Quarrymen wasn't a cool name, and they needed to change their name. Their demo disc came out on July 12th, 1958, which had Buddy Holly's That'll Be the Day on it in a studio in Liverpool. These guys said, we got to change our name. Who's our favorite artist? Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Well, okay, the Crickets is a cool name. Let's pick another bug and just call ourselves the Beatles. So, Quarrymen became the Beatles. The Beatles' first official release, actually first ever recording, is their cover of Buddy Holly's That'll Be the Day. And I just figured that was kind of a cool story. The Beatles got their name by Buddy Holly and the Crickets. They became the Beatles, played Buddy Holly songs, and learned how to harmonize from Buddy Holly. Again, defining how important Buddy Holly is.
Yeah. He is really like the root of so much of it. I also, no one's going to remember this band. I don't think, who's listening, but there was a local band. I want to say they were from Akron, Ohio, around the turn of the millennium, that was called the Beatless.
The Beatless.
So it looked like the Beatles were playing everywhere.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
I remember it was pretty funny. I thought that was great, because I always remember being the Beatles. What a weird name. And then I remember hearing that story and being like, that's absolutely brilliant. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna get into the my deep dive today, but I'm gonna do a pre-recorded version of it. So let's go ahead and cut to that before we say goodbye for the week.
All right, that was Dev's Deep Dive, brought to you by Six Tuning Pegs, providing technology solutions for guitarists and the rest of the world. Find out more at sixtuningpegs.com. That's the number 6, tuningpegs.com, for the love of guitar. Thanks, Dev. That was good.
Yeah, thank you. That's it for this week. Again, the playlist is up if you want to listen to it. We do an episode like this every single Friday, or every single Saturday one drops. Matt, you got anything that's going on that you folks are working on?
I think it's Friday.
It's Friday. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. They do drop. They drop on Friday where you are. I'm in a different time zone, so
it's still Friday. It's still Friday when it drops.
I'm doing my best here.
No.
But you got anything interesting happening on your side? Anything new that you folks are recording or doing that you want to talk about?
So, yeah, we just recorded Steve Drohosky's Zebra Tree project. I did speak about this, I believe, last week, where we turned an entire beautiful cathedral here in Erie, Pennsylvania, into a recording studio, and the video for that is the mixing is all happening now. That's what we got going on in the studio. Planning on recording more of Broke Bull and String Show, so that's coming out. And obviously, I told you it's been a pretty rough week, losing my brother, Marky G. But so we're gonna be setting up a benefit and a GoFundMe and stuff to help his family pay for some of the cost. Yeah, it's been a rough one and a long one, but I mean, It just, if there's one thing I can say to everyone out there, tell your friends you love them, and appreciate them, because you don't know how much time we have. And I know that sounds cliche, but until one hits this close to home, you don't understand how cliche, or why it's such a cliche, because it's so true. So it's just important. And record. If you're a musician out there and you have friends who you've made awesome music with, get it recorded, because you never know when you can't get that last recording with somebody.
Yeah. Well put, man. Yeah. Don't leave it left unsaid. Is one of my favorite sayings. Can the saying being about leaving things not unsaid? I don't know. Whatever. Anyway.
As long as you're saying it.
If you're saying it, then it's a saying. Yeah. All right, well, we'll see you folks next week. Thank you for joining us. This has been Six Tuning Pegs. No, it's not been Six Tuning Pegs. Once Upon a Tune is a Six Tuning Pegs production in association with Aerotune Productions.
Aerotune? That's it. He's fired, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, exactly.
Once again, y'all, this has been Once Upon a Tune, brought to you by Six Tuning Pegs. Check out sixtuningpegs.com and Aerotone Productions. Shout out to Dev, because Dev works really hard behind the scenes, editing all these videos and putting them together for you. We work really hard. We hope you appreciate it. If you do, I hate to be this guy, but like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. We don't like saying that too much, but honestly, it does help, and it helps get the message and the love of music out to more people. So,
absolutely. And yeah, so we do this every week. Apparently, it drops on Friday. Once Upon a Tune is a podcast about tunes where we celebrate music
and the people and the characters who create it. See, now you got me messing up,
y'all.
We'll
see you next week.
Bye,
Cheers.
Guys.